Axel Sandin-Pellikka has been on an absolute tear to start out this season. In his first 17 games in the SHL this year, he has 14 points as a 19-year-old D. As the former 17th overall pick by the Wings in the 2023 NHL draft, we're going to be taking a look at his game this year in the SHL, seeing the improvements he's made and why he's looking special for this Detroit defense in the future. So make sure you watch till the end as we go through the complete prospect breakdown and hit that subscribe button if you're new for more hockey content just like this all throughout the year. Now, Axel Sandin-Pellikka is somebody that I've wanted to talk about on the channel for a few weeks now, but haven't really gotten the opportunity to yet, but he's somebody that in the SHL has been really impressing me so far. As you guys probably know, he was somebody I liked quite a bit in his draft year back in 2023. I ranked him 10th overall. I had him as my second best D in that draft class, and I would say so far that's looking pretty good. Of course, we all know that he ended up going 17th overall to Detroit, which honestly, looking back on the draft, I think is looking like a pretty great pick for the Red Wings, but at 5'11", 185 pounds, he's somebody that already in the SHL has developed so well. After he was drafted, he ended up getting 10 goals, 18 points in 39 games last year. And then this season, he's just gone off to an even better start. In 17 games, has 5 goals, 9 assists for 14 points. And a couple weeks ago was a point per game in the SHL as a 19-year-old defenseman. But some of you guys might not realize just how impressive Sandin-Pellikka has been to start out this season. You look at this entire SHL team, and he's tied for first in scoring. He's tied with Oscar Lindberg, former NHLer, former New York Ranger, and above par Lindholm, former NHLer as well. Two forwards who, of course, specialize in offense in the SHL. Sandin-Pellikka is either on top of them or right with them. And you can see how hard offense can come in the SHL when you have a player like Michael Brandsegg-Nygård, another Red Wings first rounder, who only has 2 goals, 2 points in 9 games to start out this season. When it comes to Sandin-Pellikka in the offense, he's been able to show it's been pretty revolutionary. But then you look at SHL wide scoring this season, and it gets even more impressive. Not only is he leading his team in scoring, he's also leading all defensemen in scoring in the SHL. In my opinion, maybe the best league outside of North America right now. Axel Sandin-Pellikka is right near the top. In fact, he's tied with points for former NHLer Ty Ratty, for example. Even though you have a difference in play between the NHL and the SHL, it's a competitive league, especially for ice time, yet Sandin-Pellikka has been able to establish himself and become an elite player in this league. And then you go on to maybe the most impressive stat out of all of them, and that is this. Now, this entire graph is U20 defensemen all-time in the SHL for points in a season. So this is basically the most points you can get as a U20 defenseman. Axel Sandin-Pellikka is on pace for the best season as a U20 defender ever in the SHL. Right now with a 0.82 points per game, that's above Nils Lundqvist and Moritz Seider, both recently establishing bests in the SHL recently, yet Sandin-Pellikka is in a pretty big tier ahead of those guys. And even past Nils Lundqvist and Moritz Seider, you also got Victor Hedman, you got Rasmus Dahlin, some pretty great defensemen who have come and gone, yet Sandin-Pellikka is right now at the very top. But not only has Sandin-Pellikka been able to become this point producer, I think he's also improved a lot in his overall game too, and I think this will lead to a lot of success down the line. The fact that we've been able to see him become this bigger defenseman, this much more consistent defenseman too, playing in the SHL as well, which I think is an incredibly strong league to develop at, to get stronger, to get better, and to me this will just lead to so much success in the NHL in the future. But with that added overall game, we've also seen the coaches in the SHL giving him a lot more opportunities and responsibilities too. In his 17 games he's played this season, only one game as he played less than 19 minutes a night, which again for a 19-year-old defenseman is pretty unprecedented and just shows how much responsibility and willingness he has from his team and his coaching staff and everybody around him. And deservedly so. You look at just how consistent he has been as well, not really going too often without too many points. This last few games has maybe been his worst stretch of the season offensively, only getting 1 point in 4 games, but he's never gone more than 2 games without a point and has been pretty consistent. I mean, he went in a stretch for his first bunch where he only had a couple of games without a point in a game, and it just shows the completeness that we're starting to see out of his game. Let's take a look at some of the best plays that we've seen out of Sandin-Pellikka this year, because there is quite a bit to go over. There was this goal earlier that really caught my eye, his second goal of the SHL season. As you can see, the puck gets looped around the boards, goes right back to Sandin-Pellikka, and then he just dekes around the forward so easily and is able to rifle it past the goaltender. I loved this play because when Sandin-Pellikka is at his best, his confidence is at a sky high, and we've just been able to see see it just be turned around this year. I mean, that move right there is just absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, the offense is going to be the most important attribute for Sandin-Pellikka, but he has improved even in that this year in so many ways, asserting himself so much more too. In fact, asserting himself in the play was one of those things I wanted to see Sandin-Pellikka be more consistent at. Use that in more shifts, use that later in games, and use that confidence to really establish himself against pressure. And there was this offensive shift that led to an assist here that I just loved, where you see Sandin-Pellikka choke out the player there and get the loose puck for his teammate. He rifles it home. Pretty nice assist there, but it wasn't even a pass or anything crazy. It was just boxing out the player there so that they couldn't get the puck, and he ended up using his body positioning to pass it to his forward, and it worked out pretty beautifully there. There was also this 4-on-4 shift that I absolutely adored. You can see just the speed and skating ability that Sandin-Pellikka has out there. He comes through just easily, is able to enter the zone. Nice little back pass as well. And then we see later on in the shift, Sandin-Pellikka actually doing some dirty work in the corners, trying to get that puck back. I love the deception here and how he's able to use his edge work, getting past the player and able to get it back to the point pretty easily, shifting the play back, and this would later, of course, lead to that goal. Sandin-Pellikka has always had the flash, and when he's at his best, the confidence in his game, but what he's been able to improve in is using his edge work, using that skating, using that confidence in more ways than one, and I think that's allowed him to have a lot more success this year, simply put. But going back to the moments that we've seen throughout this season, this to me was the most important one and easily the best. You look at what the position was in the game, it was 4-4 in the third period, and it was a power play for them, which is obviously an important note here. But what Sandin-Pellikka is able to do on this goal is just absolutely showcase the improvements in his skating, improvements in the confidence, and I mean, just look at this. It's a complete end-to-end rush. What Sandin-Pellikka is able to do with the deception, able to go through the middle effortlessly, get that shot off, and it's 5-4. And this was an absolutely rock star shift from him, just using so much speed and deception too. There was a couple of times where he kind of looked like he was going to fake a pass, go back to a different defenseman or go back to a different forward, and ends up just rifling through himself. And I think it caught almost everybody on the other team off guard. But that's what Sandin-Pellikka can do. He can make you pay for any little bit of hesitancy, and I just love the confidence that he's been able to prove in the SHL. I mean, just getting past those defenders with the sticks on him too, that was just awesome. We've also seen some of the Swedish media over there as well giving a lot of love to Sandin-Pellikka, rightfully so. There was the outlet Aftonbladet's panel of experts, and apparently out of the 5-man unit of best SHL players so far, 5 out of 5 of them included Sandin-Pellikka on the defense. So not only, of course, is the stats and the moments and the highlights there, but also what experts are seeing, what they're seeing out of Sandin-Pellikka has led them to say that he's been one of the best defensemen out of the SHL, and rightfully so. I love this quote as well, and it perfectly echoes what the improvements in Sandin-Pellikka's game has been. Battle for the second D spot behind the obvious Sandin-Pellikka is tough. The 19-year-old suddenly looks like a veteran with his body language and hockey sense. No need or words to describe the way he plays hockey. It's enough to make you religious. But there you go, man. Sandin-Pellikka has been impressing pretty much everybody around the SHL, and deservedly. He has been on absolute tear and on a different level than he was even before last season. He was somebody that I thought last year had some great moments, was able to improve in the offensive game. The goal scoring especially was a great thing to see out of him, but there were still a lot of defensive issues, and I would say like the body positioning, the physicality was something that he was still really adapting to. This year, there are still defensive issues, and there are still times where you want to see more, but at the same time, he's never going to be this great defensive player. The offense is where things are really going to be the best at, so if he can survive defensively, the offense is more than going to make up for it. And I think especially for Detroit's defense, that is something they desperately need. You look at Moritz Seider, Simone Evanson, now in the NHL, both of those guys, but they're more on the defensive side at this stage in their careers, and I think will likely be more defensemen rather than true point getters at the NHL. In Sandin-Pellikka's case, though, this is somebody that I think could run a power play, could absolutely quarterback a lot of different situations for you offensively, and be able to create himself, be able to drive play. We've talked, of course, a lot about this channel about Elaine Hudson. Axel Sandin-Pellikka is right up that alley in terms of deception and footwork and using his offense to create. And in Sandin-Pellikka's case, I think he's exactly what the doctor ordered for Detroit, who right now is very much struggling to create offense. If you look at this defense now, and I think they could really use somebody like Axel Sandin-Pellikka, not saying that Detroit should have signed him, because I think think getting this extra in the SHL will be good for Sandin-Pellikka's development, but I think next year, once that comes fully, we'll see that defense in Detroit changing quite a bit. You also have Albert Johansson, who's impressed me quite a bit this season too, as a younger D there, and it seems like this Detroit defense will finally be turning a page eventually. Might not be quick enough, since I think this year they're still in a pretty rough spot, but I think once Sandin-Pellikka fully enters the fold, he's going to bring some confidence and some juice that they desperately need. Now, this is what I could see a defense, if we're just talking about the young players in Detroit and the prospects they have in the pool, potentially looking like if they were to be together in the future. I think Edvinsson Seider is something that will eventually work, and maybe in the case you would want to have Edvinsson and Axel Sandin-Pellikka. I think the left side after Edvinsson is a little bit weak, and that's maybe something that Detroit targets in this next draft perhaps, but you have Albert Johansson there, who's already been making an impact this season. You also have players like William Willander, Anton Johansson, Antti Timisto. You also got Jack Phelan on Wisconsin, who defensively has played pretty well. Shai Boom, of course, now with Grand Rapids, formerly of University of Denver. They have a lot of decent prospects, I would say, after Edvinsson Seider and Axel Sandin-Pellikka, but maybe they would stand to maybe add a fourth defenseman to that crop, especially on that left side, to bolster it a little bit. Maybe another puck mover, perhaps, that could play with Seider, and then you could have Edvinsson, Axel Sandin-Pellikka. Who knows? There's options there, but I would say that top three, Edvinsson, Seider, and Pellikka, is looking pretty awesome. I think at the very least, what Axel Sandin-Pellikka is going to allow Seider to do is not be absolutely thrown to the wolves every single dang night. They'll actually have a right D that they can trust to play minutes. Maybe not on pure defensive hockey, especially in his rookie season, but I think eventually Axel Sandin-Pellikka will be the perfect middle pair D that can put some offense up, will be able to be versatile in the way he plays, and that's exactly what Detroit needs. Considering Jeff Petrie is their second pair right D, it ain't working out there. That's what I mean though when I say that Axel Sandin-Pellikka will be special for this Detroit team, because they really don't have that type of element in their defense. They don't have this electrifying, pure confidence, pure puck-moving defenseman that Axel Sandin-Pellikka can be. Moritz Seider is the close to that, but he's fit into more of this defensive game as his career has gone on, and that's something that Detroit has needed more and more for him to be. But Axel Sandin-Pellikka, I think with Seider there, with Edvinsson there, two guys that will be defensive dynamos, will allow Sandin-Pellikka to play more sheltered minutes in his rookie year, which I think will be important for him, but eventually be this top point producer, this top power play guy, and I think that's the role that'll fit pretty perfectly in Detroit. Right now, they got Moritz Seider, they got Eric Gustafsson on their power play units, but I think it'll allow Seider to be on that second power play, while Sandin-Pellikka's on that first power play, really controlling the pace of play, which, if Seider's going to be turning into more of this defenseman, allowing him to just have more time to settle into that type of role, I think will be pretty good for Seider and good for ASP. Still, though, I think the future is bright for Detroit's defense as they naturally move on from some of those young, older players, and we've already seen in Albert Johansson's case some promising play there, so hopefully that continues, but in Sandin-Pellikka's case, the rest of the year will be an interesting one for him, for just how much confidence he's already proven himself in throughout the multitude of games we've seen so far. I think he just needs to continue to ball, continue to play his own game, and success is obviously going to come from that. Now, the big question will be if we see Sandin-Pellikka signed. I think that'll just depend on how his SHL season goes, how potential playoffs go, but I don't think there's any need to rush him. I mean, even if Detroit's in a playoff spot, I don't know how much of a difference Sandin-Pellikka is going to make this year, but I wouldn't mind him being in the NHL, because that would be a lot of fun already. Now, Sandin-Pellikka's team is right about the middle of the SHL standings right now, so if they don't make the playoffs, and of course the SHL regular season ending in March, there is the case to be made that Sandin-Pellikka could play a few games by the end of the season and get some games in like Leighton Hudson did, of course, for the Montreal Canadiens last year, so there is potential for that. So even though I don't know if it's extremely likely, there is the possibility for him to come into the NHL this year, and I think he'd do pretty well at it. It will be an interesting one, though, if his team misses in the SHL and the Red Wings are fighting for a playoff spot right at the very end of the season like they were last year. Maybe they want to bring in an Axel Sandin-Pellikka as a late kind of trade deadline piece, signing him and adding him to that defense. I wouldn't be opposed to it. Now, in the case of being fair, I do think there are some things that will limit Sandin-Pellikka, at least to start out. Namely, there will always be an adjustment going from any league to the NHL in terms of pace of play. And I think especially for some of these leagues that have these large ice surfaces like Sweden, like the SHL, there's going to be a pretty natural learning curve, especially for defensemen like Sandin-Pellikka, who really use the extra space to their advantage with the skating, with the speed they have, and how much quicker forechecker is going to be coming on him, how much quicker just players in general are going to be creating pressure. I think it'll be somewhat of a learning curve for him. And I think that'll be the biggest thing. Maybe holds back Sandin-Pellikka to start out. I think eventually he'll be able to adapt like he's adapted from the junior leagues onto the SHL, but I think that is something that could hold him back at least to start out. But no matter what, if he comes this year or comes next year, I think Sandin-Pellikka is going to be a presence for this Detroit defense. To me, he's going to be one of my Calder candidates for next year, considering the opportunities I think could be available to him next season. We'll have to wait and see, but no matter what happens, even if he's in a more sheltered role, he'd still be, what, 20 years old at the start of next season, so there's no need to rush him in any one way whatsoever, so we'll have to wait and see on that. But to me, Sandin-Pellikka is looking like the future of that Detroit defense and exactly what the doctor ordered for just more offense, more production, more puck movement onto that Detroit team, and I think Sandin-Pellikka is going to fix that very quickly. But that's it for today's breakdown. If you guys did enjoy, hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and comment down below your thoughts on the improvements in Sandin-Pellikka's game, the progression that we've seen out of him, and what do you think Detroit should do? Do you think they should sign him this year? Do you think they should wait until next season? And how do you see him being in the NHL? Do you think he was a steal at 17th overall? Let me know your thoughts down below on that, and I will see you guys in the next one. Make sure you click on this card right here for all my hockey prospect content in one playlist. Share the video with all the hockey fans you guys know online, and I will see you guys in the next one. Have a fantastic hockey day, and goodbye.